Imagine a world where a librarian could become a millionaire by lunch, and a college dropout could own a private jet by dinner, all because of a single word. In the late 1990s, that word was magic. It was a digital spell that promised a future where gravity didn't exist and money grew on invisible trees. But this isn't just a story about technology. It's a story about a massive, glittering balloon that everyone believed would never pop. It's a story of how the world's brightest minds were blinded by a three-letter suffix, and how today we might be walking right back into that same blinding light.
Hello and welcome. If you're new here, welcome to Amazing 5.
Our journey begins in the early 1990s. At that time, computers were beige boxes that sat quietly in the corner offices, and the internet was a silent, gray landscape of text. It was boring, difficult to use, and restricted to scientists and academics. But then, a spark was struck in a small lab. A group of young programmers created Mosaic, the first web browser that allowed the world to see pictures and text on the same page. Suddenly, the internet had a face. The leader of this group, a visionary named Marc Andreessen, realized he had found the key to a new kingdom. He founded a company called Netscape, and when it went public in 1995, the world witnessed a miracle. On the first day of trading, Netscape's stock price didn't just rise, it exploded. A company that had never made a single penny in profit was suddenly worth nearly $3 billion. For the investors on Wall Street, this was an omen. It was as if they had discovered a secret code for infinite wealth. They decided that from that day forward, the old rules of business were dead. You didn't need to sell products. You didn't need to satisfy customers. And most importantly, you didn't need to make a profit. All you needed was a website and a name that ended in .com. Suddenly, a fever took over. Investors were like children in a candy store with a stolen credit card. They threw hundreds of millions of dollars at any idea, no matter how ridiculous it sounded. There was a company called pets.com that spent millions on a sock puppet mascot and Super Bowl ads, even though they were losing money on every bag of dog food they shipped. There was Webvan, which promised to deliver groceries to your door, building mass, expensive warehouses before they even had enough customers to fill a single truck. It was a time of rockstar CEOs and champagne-soaked launch parties. A company called Pixelon famously spent $16 million on a single party in Las Vegas, hiring world-famous bands to play for a technology that barely worked. Everyone felt like a genius. Even regular people, teachers, mechanics, and grandmothers were taking their life savings and putting them into tech stocks. They were driven by a terrifying new emotion, the fear of missing out. They believed the balloon would only get bigger, and the sky was the only limit. But every balloon, no matter how beautiful, eventually meets a needle. For the dot-com era, there were three. The first was a phantom called the Y2K bug. As the year 2000 approached, the world was paralyzed by the fear that computers would crash and the global economy would stop. While the disaster never happened, the anxiety it created made people whisper for the first time, "What if we are wrong?" The second needle was held by Alan Greenspan, the head of the American Central Bank. He saw the irrational exuberance of the market and began to raise interest rates, making it harder for these profitless companies to survive on borrowed cash. The final needle came from across the ocean. In March 2000, Japan, the tech giant of the East, announced that its economy was entering a downward spiral. The news hit the world like a lightning bolt. In an instant, the greed turned into pure, cold panic. The screens on Wall Street, which had been a vibrant green for years, suddenly turned into a sea of bleeding red. Between the years 2000 and 2002, a staggering $5 trillion vanished into thin air. The aftermath was a silent horror. Those who had felt like gods of industry were now standing in lines for unemployment checks. The champagne was replaced by tears as companies worth billions of dollars were sold for the price of their office furniture. Thousands of people lost their homes, their retirement funds, and their dignity. The dot-com dream had become a nightmare. Only a few survivors, like Amazon and Apple, were left standing in the ruins, forced to rebuild from the ashes of a world that had lost its mind. Now skip ahead 25 years. to the present day. We are standing in a world of high-definition screens and lightning-fast connections, and we hear a new magic word, AI. Just like the late 90s, billions of dollars are flowing toward anything that mentions artificial intelligence. The hype feels familiar. In 2023, a company called Builder.ai held a magnificent party at a luxury hotel in Vietnam, claiming their AI could build apps without any human help. Investors like Microsoft poured $250 million into the dream. But then history started to rhyme. An investigation revealed that the magic wasn't coming from a computer chip. Instead, it was coming from 700 human engineers in India and Romania doing the work behind a digital curtain. It was the same old story selling a dream that the technology wasn't yet ready to deliver. The story of the dot-com bubble is a mirror for our time. It teaches us that while technology changes at the speed of light, human nature remains anchored in the same place. Greed and the hope for a quick win will always build bubbles, and reality will always be the needle. As we move into this new era of intelligence, we must remember the faces of those who lost everything in the year 2000. We must remember that a business is only as strong as its foundation, not its buzzwords. If we ignore the lessons of history, we aren't just building a future. We are building a bigger, louder, and more painful explosion. The computers may be smarter now, but the fundamental rule remains: when everyone is running toward the same light, someone is bound to trip in the dark.